Hi my friends, it's been a while and I'm back. Today we are going to learn how to create this beautiful nature cosmetic render inside of Blender. Without much talk, open up your Blender and let's start. Before we start, please check out my cosmetic bottles pack, which contains 20 cosmetic bottles, 5 pre-made scenes, materials, gobos, and a lot more to help you create professional looking cosmetic renders in no time. Link in the description below. So first, we're going to hit on general to create our new scene. Right. So we're going to start with the bottle, and then next we build up our scene after we are done with the bottle. So I'm going to select the cube and then our light, and then hit on X to delete them from the scene. Next, let's do Control Shift A to add in a new mesh object, and we're going to use cylinder for the base of our bottle. Once we have the cylinder inside, we can pop this open, and then we can leave the vertices to 32 and then radius to 1 m, and then depth to 2 m. Leave everything as it is. Next, let's select our cylinder and then hit on tab to enter into edit mode. Now let's add in some loop cuts here and there. So first we do Ctrl+R to add in a loop cut. Then we scroll it down to somewhere around here. Once we are done, we come to this top here. We select our edge select mode, and then we hit on Alt click to select this bottom edge here, and then we do S to scale. Then we are going to scale it down to something like this, and then we do the same on the top there. So Alt click to select the entire loop, S to scale, then we'll scale it down till we have a shape like this. Next, once it's scaled down and then all the edges are selected, we can do Ctrl+B to add in a bevel, and then scroll our mouse wheel 2 to create a nice bevel like this. Next, we select the top part, so we hit on 3 for face select mode. Then we select this face, then we can do I to insert it inside like this, and then I, and then E to extrude it out a bit like this, and then we can do I once again to insert it inside a little bit, and then E to extrude it out like this. Right. Once we are done with the extrusion, we can select the stop part, hit on X, and then delete faces to delete it face. Right. So now, nice and simple, we are done with the base shape. Let's tab out of edit mode, and then this is what we have. So right click and then hit on shade smooth to shade it smooth. Once we are done with that, we can do Ctrl+2 to add in 2 levels of subdivision. So if you go to our modifiers tab, you can see we have subdivision, and then we have 2 levels of subdivision applied to it. Or you can just go to add modifiers, generate, and then you look for your subdivision surface, and then you can increase level to 2. Once we're done with that, let's select the bottle, tab into edit mode once again, and then let's add in a couple of loop cuts to bring our form even better. So Ctrl+R, one loop cut here, Ctrl+R, then we scroll to create a couple of loop cuts at the top. Do the same thing here, and then let's focus on the bottom part. So I'll hit on 3 and select this part, I to extrude it inside one, then I to extrude it inside once again, then G, and then move it up on the G axis like this, then I, then extrude, and then maybe bring that one down a bit like this, so that we have this little bit of detail at the bottom part. Next, let's focus on the stop part. Same thing, let's add in one loop cut here, and then another one here, then maybe another one at the middle like this, so that we have this nice and tight rounded edge here. So next, let's create our cap. Tab into edit mode, Alt, and then let's click and select this ring here, and then we do Shift D to create a duplicate. I'll click on my right click to apply the duplicate right at this point, and then I'll hit on P, and then we separate by selection. So now if we jump out of edit mode by hitting tab, we have 2 objects. We have 1 here and then 2 here. If we look at our scene, you can see we have one cylinder and then cylinder 001, right? So we can rename this as body, and then we can use this as cap, right? So this will be the cap. So once we have the cap selected, let's hit on tab to jump into edit mode once again, and then we can do alt click to select the entire ring. Then we do E to extrude it on the Z axis like this, and then we do E once again, right click to apply the extrusion, and then S to scale our extrusion inside like this. And then we can do E once again to extrude it on the Z axis like this, right? So and then we can repeat the same pattern once again, and then E Z to bring it down like this. So as we did for the other one, let's add in a couple of loop cuts to tighten this one up as well. So we do Control R, add loop cuts right here, then Control R, R, and then we add another one here, then we add another one at the middle like this. Tab out of edit mode, and then this is what we have. So right click, and then let's shade it smooth. So we have this smooth cap like this, right? So next, let's create the top part as we did for this one. Let's select this, tab into edit mode, and then alt click to select this entire ring once again. Let's do Shift D to create a duplicate, P, and then separate it by selection. Now let's tab out of edit mode, select the newly created ring, then let's jump into edit mode once again, then alt click, and then E to extrude it up on the Z axis like this, right? So next, let's create that math, that tip, that math at this point, right, where when you press on your bottle, the substance inside will come out from. So to create that, we are going to use loop tools to create a circle, and then we extrude the circle outside, right? So if you don't have your loop tools active, go to your edit, preference, and then look for your add-ons, and then search for loop tools, and then make sure you have this checked, right? Once you do that, what we are going to do is let's come here, and then let's do Control R, and let's create one loop cut at the middle, and then let's bevel that loop cut, Control B, and then make sure we have 3 cuts like this. So once we are done, let's make sure we select one line which is exactly aligned with the x-axis or the y-axis or the x-axis. So I can go to my front view, and then I think this line does, right? So once we select this, we can hit on 3 and then select on these 3 faces like this, and then we can do I to insert. First we insert, then maybe we can scale it up like this to make sure they are uniformly scaled. Then right click, and then we can do right click, loop cuts, loop tools, and then we can do circle to create a circle. So let's pop this menu up, and then let's make sure we uncheck flatten so that it's not flattened, so that it follows the curvature as we want. Then we can do S to scale it inside a bit like this, right? And then next we can create an extrusion. We can insert the face one, so we can do I to create one insertion like this, and then next we can do E to extrude it outside, right? So once we extrude, we can hit on X, and then we can delete faces to delete this face, right? So let's select alt click, make sure we have our edge select mode active. Let's hit on alt click, and then we can do G on the Y axis to bring it back like this. Let's go to our front view by hitting on this, and then we can do E to extrude it once again, and then R to rotate it down, and then G to bring it down like this, right? So once we are done with the cap and we are okay with it, let's fill this up. So we'll tab into edit mode as usual. Let's select this entire ring, ES, let's scale it, ES, scale, ES, scale, and then we can hit on F to fill this up like this. So once we are done with our bottle and everything, and it's looking nice and beautiful. So next, let's see how we can apply materials and then set up our scene. So before we continue, let's first save our scene. So we'll do Ctrl+S and then save it as bottle, then hit on enter to save my scene. So next, let's apply our materials. So to apply our materials, let's drag this here. Now let's change this to the shader editor. And then next, let's change this to look dev mode so that we can see what we are doing. So let's select the main body and then hit on new to give it a new material. Let's change the color to anything random to make sure the color is working. So the label we are going to, obviously we are going to apply a label onto it. The label I'm going to use is very simple. It's just this. So you can pause and then copy if you want to follow along. Just a simple text and then some image that we're going to apply onto our bottle, right? So as usual, we're going to do the same setup we've been doing over and over and over again. First, we add in the label. So let's select this principal BSDF, then hit on Ctrl+T to add in the label. Then we are going to hit on open. Then we open our label as JPEG. So I'll hit on open to open it up. So as you can see, here is where the label is being applied. So we will have to first go into our UV editing tab, select everything, and then let's make sure we position our label very well, right? So since we have the bottle here, we can change this to the viewport editing so that we see what we're doing. Next, let's select these two islands and then make them smaller. So I'll select any point here, hit on L to select linked. I'll select here, hit on L to select linked, and then S to scale it down, then G to position it somewhere here. I'll do the same for here, L, S to scale it down, and then G to position it somewhere here. So we are going to focus, our main focus is going to be here. This is where we position our label properly so that it fits with this properly. So I'll drag to select the entire thing, and then I'll hit on G, X, Z, G, Y to bring it inside like this. So you can see as I bring it inside, it's being affected here. So next, let's scale it up until everything is on our label nicely like this, right? So once we are done and then everything is looking nice and perfect, we can jump back to our layout and then continue with our materials, right? So once we have this, next what we are going to do is we are going to use this label that we added in as a mask. So we are going to mix two principal BSDF together. So next I'll do Shift D to create another one here. I'm going to change the color to any color I want for now. And then we are going to mix these two using this as a mask. So I'll unplug it from here for now. And then next we do Shift A, search, and then we'll search for shader, mix shader, right? So we'll bring this mix shader right in the middle like this. And then we plug this as the second color like this. And then next we use this color as the factor, right? So the one at the top is going to come through wherever there's blacks, which is usually the main font and then the label, and then the one at the bottom is going to be the most dominant one, which is the yellow. So once we are done with this, we can easily adjust to any color we want to our hard content. So in this one we're going to make it black, so I make sure I have it set to black. Then let's make it metallic. Now let's decrease the roughness a bit, like this. If only you can see. So let me decrease the roughness a bit, so that it's a bit shiny. Next, we can add in some bump to this so that it even stands out even more. So to do that, let's do Shift A and let's search for bump node. Now let's bring it here, and then let's put this normal into the normal like this, and then let's put the color into the height. So if you look at it carefully, you can see there's a little bit of bump being applied onto our bottle, right? That's what we want. You can decrease the strength a bit and then play with the distance a bit, just to create a very subtle bump like that, nice and beautiful. So next, we can do the same for here. So let's duplicate this, and then let's add it to the normal like this, and then the height, we are going to plug in a noise texture. So let's search for noise texture, the factor of the noise texture into the height. So as you can see, it's very huge and big. So first, let's decrease the strength until we have something very light. Let's decrease the distance as well, and then let's increase the scale so that we have a very rough surface like this. Let's decrease the strength even more, so it's very light, nice, very light, and it's like it's not there. And then let's decrease the roughness like this. Yeah, so this is what we want. So next, let's apply some basic materials to the top part. So select the top part, make sure we have the base color set to white, and then decrease the roughness a bit. Select this, alt click to select the bottom part, Ctrl plus L, and let's apply link material so that these two objects share the same material, right? So we can select both of them, and then we can rotate them R to rotate them to somewhere here, nice and beautiful. So now we are done with our shading and material. Let's move on to setting up our scene, and then creating our beautiful nature, and then preparing it and making it ready for render. So for setting up our scene, we are going to use the plant library, which I've already made a video about it. I'm going to leave a link in the description below if you want to understand how to set that up and get a lot of free awesome plant assets to use. So first, let's go here, let's go to our assets. So let's go to our asset browser, then we go to and choose our asset, which is the plant library. I've already made a video about it. I'm going to leave a link in the description below if you want to check it out. So inside our plant library, we're going to use some rocks and then some ferns to create our scene. So to set up our scene, first let's drag here to create an extra window, and then you can select everything, hold shift and click on the last, which is the bottle here, then Ctrl plus P, then we parent it by object. So now if I move this, everything is going to move along with it. So next, what we have to do is we can hit on this to bring up our move tool, just drag and bring it up to somewhere here. Then next, let's do Shift plus A, then let's add in a plane like this, right? So next, once we do that, let's go back to our assets library, into the plant asset library, and then let's select one. So I'm going to select this, drag, and then I'll drop it right here, right? So as you can see, our bottle is way huge. We have to reduce it a bit. Before, let's look into our camera. So I'll hit on my camera view to bring our camera, and then let's lock our camera into view so that we can position our camera nicely. I'm going to go with a square render for this one. So let's jump into our output properties, and then let's change the resolution X to 1080. So that's nice and square, 1080 by 1080, right? So next, let's select our bottle. Let's select everything, and then let's scale it down since it's way huge. And let's bring it down somewhere here. You can zoom in. Let's move this here. I think it's still huge. So let's try as much as possible to find a nice place and position your bottle for your final render R to rotate. The creative freedom is completely in your hands. Find a nice place, a nice position to position your scene. So once we're done, maybe we'll try and change our camera angle a bit. So let's select our camera and let's change the focal length to, let's say, something like 90. So I'll have a very huge focal length like this. Nice and beautiful. Once everything is in scene, we can add in a couple of plants, flowers here and there to finish up our scene. So let's quickly go to our plants, and then I'll choose ferns for now, forest ferns. So I'll select one, drag, and then I'll drop it at the back here. Maybe scale it up, and then move it to this side. That is inside our scene. I'll select this one, drag and drop it here. So that one too is inside our scene. Maybe duplicate this one. At this point, you have the creative freedom to do whatever you want. Just have to make sure you make it pretty, you make it look pretty, and that's the most important thing. So it's just a bunch of drag and drop here and there until we find something that works for us. Simple as that. Maybe let's add in some flowers so that we have nice contrasts. Just trying to rotate so that we have a little bit of flower in scene. So once we're done, let's change our render engine from Eevee to Cycles, and then let's change the device to GPU compute. Then let's try and see a quick render. So this is what we have so far. Next, let's add in some lights to brighten up our scene. So we are going to use an HDRI for this one. So let's go to our shader editor, make sure we change it to wild, and then with our background selected, hit on Ctrl+T to add in a new environment texture, right? So we're going to hit on open so that we can plug in our HDRI to the environment texture. So I have downloaded a couple of them to try out. You can get some from HDRI Havens. They are completely free. So just select anyone you want, double click, then it will be added to your scene like this, nice and beautifully. So just like that, you have a nice lighting added to your scene. So once you're okay with your lighting, next what we have to do is you can add in an extra lighting if you want, but I think this looks beautiful and fine. Next, let's add in some depth of field to our camera. So let's select our camera here, then let's go to our camera properties, then let's look for depth of field, and then let's select it, right? So once we do that, we have to let the camera know which object it is supposed to focus on. So let's select our eyedropper tool, then let's click on our main body, which is the main object of focus, and then the camera will be focused on that, and then it will try and blur the rest of the objects at the background and then at the foreground. So this f-stop here shows how much of blur we want, then how much of clarity we want. So if we decrease the f-stop, our image gets even blurrier, and then if we increase the f-stop, the blur is decreased. So play around with it based on what results you are looking for, and once you are done with what you want, everything is almost ready for render. So as I said, you can add extra lights if you want. So we can come to light area and then add a couple of lights if we want. Maybe change the color a bit, something bluish if we want. But I think everything is looking nice and perfect, and I'm cool with my result. So Control S to save our progress, and then maybe we can add in a plane at the back. So Control R, mesh plane, then G to bring it to the side, then R, and then rotate it on the Y axis like 90 degrees on the Y axis like this, and maybe rotate it to something like this, and let's scale it up. So once we have the plane on the back, we can go to Objects, add in a new material, and then maybe change the color of the plane to something we like. So once we're done and everything is nice, we can go to our render properties, go to our camera management, and then change the look to something like high contrast, which is looking beautiful, or maybe medium high contrast. I'll go with the high contrast for now. You can also try very high contrast. I think the high contrast gives the best results. And once we're done with everything, we can just go to render, then hit on our render image to render our final image like that. That's nice and beautiful as our image is rendering. Going forward, some animation tutorials are in the pipeline. I'm still working on them, so make sure you subscribe and like so that you don't miss out when they drop. This is the final render. As you can see, it's looking very beautiful. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something. See you on the next one. It's my friend, and I'm peace out.